So you've probably seen the headlines about a new super mutated COVID-19 variant that's popped up. It's got a catchy name, cicada, and an official one, BA.3.2. Today, we're going to cut right through the noise and break down what the science is actually telling us about it.
You see a number like over 70 mutations, and it's designed to grab your attention. It immediately brings up the big question, should we be worried? Well, that's what we're here to figure out, by looking at the real data from places like the World Health Organization and the CDC.
Okay, so first things first, what is this variant? Really? Let's dig into where it came from and what makes it so different.
At its core, BA.3.2 is part of the Omicron family. Scientists first spotted it in South Africa way back in late 2024. But as you're about to see, it's not just another run-of-the-mill subvariant.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Virologists call this a long-branch descendant. The best way to think about it is like a long-lost cousin on a family tree that just reappears out of nowhere. It evolved from an old BA.3 strain that we hadn't seen since early 2022, meaning it was changing and evolving quietly, completely off the radar, before it popped back up. And that quiet evolution resulted in a massive change. Compared to the JN1 variant that was everywhere, BA.3.2 is carrying somewhere between 70 and 75 mutations on its spike protein. That is a huge number of changes, and it's the main reason scientists are paying such close attention. This image here shows you exactly what we mean by long branch. See that line for BA.3.2, way out on its own? This family tree makes it crystal clear just how different it is from everything else that's been circulating. That's not a small step, folks. That's a giant leap.
All right, so it's heavily mutated. The next logical question, of course, is how is it moving through the population? Let's follow the breadcrumbs and track its journey around the world.
So after that first detection in late 2024, things were actually pretty quiet for a while. Then fast forward to June of 2025, and it gets picked up in the US through airport surveillance. By September, it started showing up more and more in global data, and by early 2026, it had been found in at least 23 different countries.
But let's put that spread into perspective, because numbers without context don't mean much. This chart from late 2025 shows that while BA.3.2 was growing, it was still a tiny fish in a very big pond. The dominant variant at the time, XFG, was almost 68% of all cases. BA.3.2, just under 2%. So yeah, it's on the map, but it was nowhere near taking over.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the central puzzle of BA.3.2. On one hand, it's definitely spreading. In some parts of Europe, it was making up 10 to 40% of cases. But on the other hand, lab studies show it actually has some big disadvantages. It seems to be less infectious and doesn't bind as well to our cells, which might be why it hasn't just exploded and taken over everything.
Okay, now let's get to the question that really matters to all of us. What actually happens if you get sick with this thing? Is it more dangerous?
And I'm happy to report the bottom line here is pretty clear. No. Based on all the data we have so far, there is absolutely no evidence that getting sick with BA.3.2 is any worse than getting sick with other recent Omicron variants.
In fact, the symptoms are probably going to look very familiar. People have reported a pretty nasty sore throat, but beyond that, you're looking at the usual suspects: congestion, a cough, feeling tired. Nothing here is ringing any new alarm bells.
And this is the most important part. Health authorities around the world who track this stuff are not seeing any kind of increase in hospitalizations, ICU stays, or deaths that they can pin specifically on BA.3.2. The overall severity just appears to be low.
So you might be wondering, okay, if it's not more severe and maybe it's not even as infectious, why are we still talking about it? Well, this is the twist in the story. Its uncanny ability to get around our immune defenses. Remember all those mutations we talked about earlier? This is where they come into play. In the lab, those changes allow BA.3.2 to pull off a neat trick called immune escape. Basically, it's really good at dodging the antibodies your body has made from a past infection or a vaccine.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from the CDC says it all. When they put the 2025-2026 vaccine up against 7 different variants in a lab, it struggled the most to neutralize BA.3.2, and that's why it's being watched so closely.
But, and this is a really, really important but, what happens in a petri dish is not the whole story. We still need a lot more real-world data to see how well vaccines actually work against it. And it's critical to remember,
Vaccines continue to provide powerful protection against the things that matter most: severe illness and hospitalization from all the major variants out there.
So let's bring this all home. With everything we know, what's the official word from the experts who track these viruses for a living? What's their final verdict?
Well, here it is. The World Health Organization looked at everything: how it spreads, how sick it makes people, and its ability to dodge immunity. And their conclusion is that BA.3.2 poses a low additional public health risk. So the official strategy isn't to panic, it's to be vigilant. It's a pretty straightforward approach. First, monitor the virus using every tool we have. Second, evaluate the real-world data as it comes in. And third, use that evidence to update public health advice if and when it's needed. And that brings us to the real takeaway for you and me. The single most effective thing you can do to protect yourself isn't to worry about one specific variant, but simply to stay up to date with your recommended COVID-19 vaccinations. That's your best defense against severe illness, period.
In the end, BA.3.2 is a really fascinating case study. It's a perfect reminder that a ton of mutations doesn't automatically mean a bigger public health threat. It's truly a story of vigilance over panic. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. What can its journey teach us about how we prepare for whatever the next variant might be?